As a kid, I saw a map of the surface of the tongue. So here is sweet, here is sour, salty.
That's BS. Tell
Yeah,
the truth.
unfortunately,
That's got to be BS.
the map is a fiction.
Now, I was intrigued as a kid. I saw a map of the surface of the tongue. So here is sweet, here is sour, salty.
That's BS. Tell
Yeah,
the truth.
unfortunately,
That's got to be BS.
the map is a fiction.
This is Star Talk Special Edition. Got with me my usual co-host, Gary O'Reilly. Gary.
Hi, Neil.
Hey, former soccer pro turned soccer announcer, and we get to share you with the soccer universe. Thanks for being part of the Star Talk family. And of course, Chucky baby.
Hey, what's happening?
Gary, you and your producers put this together, so give me the setup for this.
Okay, so I suppose we all do it. We all eat.
You think? Yeah, okay.
Our bodies need fuel. We shovel it in and we burn it up.
Into your pie hole.
Yep, in the pie hole. And it goes. But how many of us stop to consider the fundamentals of what we eat, such as flavor? Is it luck? Some meals taste better than others, or are we being cleverly led into a foodie heaven? Then ask yourself, why do some foods work better than others? And whose idea was it to put sea salt on caramel? Really, whose idea was that? Because it works really, really well, but it wouldn't come straight to your mind unless somebody gave it to you. So then you go, is cooking just cooking, or are we looking at science here?
I'm going to guess it's always science. That's what I'm going to guess. That's
All right, then. There's you out on a limb again, Neil.
So we've got with us repeat guests. This might be your third time on Star Talk, scattered over 5 or 6 years. Ariel Johnson. Ariel, welcome back to Star Talk.
Thanks so much for having me back.
You have the coolest designation as a flavor scientist. That's a thing.
Flavor.
It's a niche field, but we're passionate about it.
Okay, you are the flavor scientist. That's how niche-y it is. You're advisor to some of the world's top chefs, top restaurants. You have a PhD from none other than UC Davis, which has I know about their wine division, but they also have a food division there?
They do. I was actually in the wine department because they have a really strong experience with the science of flavor.
So do I.
Yeah.
But that's enology, isn't it? That's
Yeah, viticulture and enology. Yeah.
And you're co-founder of the Fermentation Lab, which sounds a little weird. It's better than the Fomentation Lab, I guess. And what does it have to do with that world-renowned restaurant in Copenhagen called Noma?
Noma.
So Noma started with, in retrospect, a little bit of a stupidly difficult creative constraint, which was let's cook with ingredients only from Scandinavia.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
And I mean, seriously, and we're celebrating this place? Come on.
Yeah, potatoes, beets, onions.
Let's just get real.
Cabbage.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
Exactly.
This Noma restaurant is world famous, possibly even across the galaxy. And I know people, they are people with means, who said, this weekend, let's go eat out at Noma. And they chartered a plane and flew there just for that. So this has got to have some remarkable draw upon people's taste buds. So what was your relationship with that restaurant? Remind us.
So when I was in grad school studying flavor chemistry, I went to grad school because I was really passionate about food and wanted to, be a scientist that was working with chefs and restaurants and applying that. Noma was a place that had started their own Nordic food lab to study ingredients and flavor, and were working with techniques like fermentation and wild ingredients, and just was sort of everything that I wanted to be doing. So I kind of talked my way into an internship in their initial lab and really hit it off with everybody. And
you just talked your way in.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Very cool.
Great.
Yeah, I think they were a little skeptical, but after some light hazing, a couple of cases of rhubarb to juice to see if I would do it. Yeah, no, it turns out that they're sort of deep thinking about flavor and how to find it and how to work with ingredients, and my knowledge of food chemistry was really complementary.
And you're also the science officer, that even such a thing, on Alton Brown's TV show Good Eats.
Yes, yeah.
Well, just to remind people, we had both of you on stage at the same time for a Star Talk Live was it at the Beacon Theater, I think it was?
The town hall here in Midtown.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it was some years ago, so we've been exposed to you before. Is that relationship still exist?
Good Eats isn't in production right now, but Alton was actually kind enough to come and do my initial book launch event here in New York at Rizzoli Bookstore. So.
Is that the Flavorama book?
That is the Flavorama book. I have it. This is the book.
Oh my God.
I wrote.
That's cool.
And when did it come out?
This came out in March, so it's been about 3 months.
March 2024. And subtitle, A Guide to Unlocking the Art and Science of Flavor. Can't argue with that. I mean, come on.
No, yeah, everybody loves flavor.
Right.
Yeah, they do. They do.
Everybody loves flavor.
Tell me, are you helping to create meals for a Michelin star restaurant so that they keep their star? Or did they not previously have a star?
Until you arrived.
What kind of investment they then earn one or more of their Michelin stars?
We need another star. Go get Ariel.
Well, I don't think about things like Michelin stars, but it's the kind of thing where a place like Noma is constantly, pushing the boundaries and trying to kind of not rest on the laurels and find ways of, being more creative, coming up with new ideas. And turns out science is really helpful for that. So I don't feel like I can take any credit for whatever, awards or stars, but I do know we work well together and make some tasty stuff.
So are there some fundamentals, Ariel, to your sort of view on flavor, or actually the way flavor exists and how we experience it?
Or is it as simple as salt?
It often is, but not always. So, going back, we agree, everyone loves flavor, and they do. It turns out that everyone loves flavor, but no one really understands what it is or how it works. But fortunately, in the sciences, we do actually know that information just hasn't crossed over.
Crossover, I like that, because the science of the rest of the world has it crossed over. I don't know, but
yeah, well,
scientists are up on it. Yeah,
the walled academic garden. Yeah, so the first things I like to kind of bring people up to speed on is that flavor is molecules. So, everything that you experience as a flavor started as a molecule that binds with one of your many receptors. Flavor is an experience created by your brain. Flavor is mostly the senses of taste and smell, and those are our two chemical senses. So, whereas, vision is sensing light, and hearing senses pressure, vibrations through the air.
We call that sound, by the way.
Yeah, but that is what. But is it sound until your brain interprets the signal into sound? Is it just waves through the air?
Yeah, philosophers like distracting themselves with that question.
Yeah.
So there's a difference, Ariel, is there not, between orthonasal olfaction and retronasal olfaction?
Yes.
And I'm not quite sure I know the difference, but you will, won't you?
Okay. Yeah, I do, fortunately. So flavor is taste and smell. Most people understand that flavor is taste because all of flavor feels like taste. It's, happening in your mouth. When I tell people that flavor is also smell, and in fact that smell is like probably a larger part of flavor than taste, that's kind of a hard sell for people.
I thought people knew that if you hold your nose, you don't taste your food. We won't do that as an experiment.
Some people know. Yeah, no, and it's a good experiment, especially now that more people have had COVID.
I was going to say a better analogy is to have a cold.
Exactly.
Just think how you feel about food when you have a cold. And the reason is that normally you can't smell things, and so food isn't nearly as appealing.
Yeah, so as flat tasting as food is, that is actually flavor with only taste, flavor without smell. Without smell, tastes themselves are very flat. So yeah, the tricky way that smell is a part of flavor. So first off, while we're eating, our brain tricks us. It doesn't we experience smell, but it doesn't feel like smell. It doesn't feel like it's happening in our nose. We'll be perceiving smells in our nose, but it's a pretty famous psychological illusion, actually, that that sensation gets kind of moved so that you perceive it as happening inside your mouth. So if you, were to take a jelly bean and chew on it with your nose closed like that, and then open your mouth, you'll feel like the kind of fruity flavors of the jelly bean bloom on your tongue. It's actually happening in your nose, but it's sort of translocated in your brain to the mouth.
The brain just never telling us the truth.
Your brain is always a liar.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to know, what's perception, what's reality, how are the two related. Big fan of that. I mean, the other thing is when you say smell, most people think like sniffing. So like, oh, you have a plate of food and there's smells coming out of it, and I guess you sniff it before you chew it. I mean, you do, but yes, there's actually two types of smell, two types of olfaction, as Gary mentioned. Sniffing is orthonasal olfaction, so it's ortho because it's normal forward, the front of the nose. But since your nasal passages in your throat is basically just a tube, air can go in through the nostrils, but air can also travel from your lungs out. And so while you're chewing your food, it's full of volatile molecules that are able to float through the air, and they just sort of float up the back of your throat.
Normally, when we think of the word volatile, we think of something that would ignite into flames or a person who is otherwise unstable. But I think when a chemist uses the term, they're just referring to molecules that will readily evaporate from wherever they were.
Yeah, so molecules that are kind of light and unsticky enough to be gaseous some of the time. But retronasal olfaction. Every time you have food in your mouth, every time you're chewing, every time you're swallowing, you get these little puffs of sort of scented air that go up the back of your throat and into your nose. And those volatile molecules can bind with your olfactory receptors, and then you're smelling as you're chewing.
Now, I was intrigued as a kid. I saw a map of the surface of the tongue, and where it said here is sweet, here is sour, salty, whatever. Was that just...
That's BS. Come on, tell the truth.
Unfortunately...
That's got to be BS.
There we go. Yes. So unfortunately, the map is a fiction. You don't have many taste buds in the center of your tongue.
So the only thing I could conclude was that if I put flavors in the center of my tongue, I did not taste it. I found that to be so.
Taste buds are like much more concentrated along the kind of edges and tip of the tongue.
Okay. So I wasn't entirely misled by it.
No. But unfortunately, it's not quite as tidy as having like the sour area.
Because it was like way tidier. I said evolution is not this tidy.
It kind of makes sense when you look at the construction of your mouth and eating. So along the edges is where you chew, and the first taste comes in through the front of your mouth. So that's the tip of your tongue. So it would make sense that that's where you would want to stimulate taste the most.
I got a good one for you. I forgot what two cities I was between when I was giving a public talks. And I had a driver, and her name was Taylor, I think, if I'm remembering that correctly. We had a whole chat about all kinds of things. And she used to work for FedEx, but then drove trucks, and then like big trucks. And now she became a driver, like a car service driver. So and she knew I was a scientist. We just started talking sciencey things. And she said she made a discovery. And I said, and she told me the discovery. It's like, whoa, I'm going to try that. So here's her discovery. She eats her hamburgers upside down.
You mean hanging upside down like a bat?
No. I don't think that's what she meant. If you invert the hamburger and you bite it, all of the toppings you put on the pickle, the ketchup, the cheese, that hits your tongue sooner than it otherwise would if it were face up. And it made sense to hear it, but then I tested it. It's like, yes, I don't have to keep swishing around the food to get to my tongue.
See, I have a better way of doing that, because this is how I do it. I just put all the condiments on both buns.
Both sides.
Both sides. Like the sauteed onions, I put them on top and bottom. Ketchup, 2
slices of cheese. That'll work.
Everything.
True innovation. Yeah.
Yeah. And now the only thing that I don't do is 2 slices of cheese top and bottom. So maybe I'll try that.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
I'm just wondering a couple of things. Is a big part of what you do, I think this is what drives modern chefdom, is not just what a flavor is, but what a melange of flavors might be. and what insights you might have in combining those flavors to come up with something transcendental.
You know, a lot of restaurants now are much more like seasonally driven and are interested in you know, things like local produce and things that peak and change with the seasons, and figuring out the best way to kind of express the flavors of all those ingredients and put them together.
I thought it was